Hello, everybody. Welcome to our very special webinar. You are all welcome. We've got people from Italy, Ukraine, New Jersey, Greece, Alabama, and Finland. Thank you so much for joining us. We'd love it if you could say hello in the chat and where you are from. We just love to see where you are around the world. So today's webinar is quite a special one. It's a little break in tradition from our usual webinars. We have a wonderful panel of people who are joining us, people that are real thought leaders in the world of education technology. So we're honoured that they're going to be joining us at quite a period of change happening. So many different technology advances happening very, very quickly. Hello to Julie in Tucson. Welcome. Pakistan. Hi, Saif. Denmark as well. Welcome to you all. As usual, we do have a webinar email for you, which you'll receive after the webinar, and it'll include the slides, which we have as the backdrop, and we also have the links to the books that we'll be showcasing as well. We would love it if you've got questions for our panelists as well. We will be able to put those on the screen. So if you're thinking something or you want to say a comment or you've got any question at all, if you pop it in the chat, I'll pop it on the screen. And who knows, you might just say something that someone else is thinking and they're not brave enough to type out. So you are all welcome. And of course, the webinar will be available as a replay on the link, which you're welcome to share as well. So as well as being joined by our wonderful panel, some of these names might be familiar to you. Some of them may be new. Karalee's been a ThingLink fan for more years than I can remember. But we also have my colleague Troy joining us. And Troy has organised this. He's put this together. So it's Troy we have to thank for bringing this wonderful group of people together. So I'm delighted to introduce my wonderful colleague, Troy. How are you, Troy? Welcome to the webinar.
Hello, everyone. I am doing fantastic.
Great. And whereabouts in the world are you? We've got people sharing where they're from. So if you could explain a little bit about you and what you're doing and where you are in the world, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. So I am located just outside of the city of Chicago in the United States. So right smack dab in the middle of the country here. It is early afternoon for me. I know we've got folks joining in their mornings, their evenings, their late nights. Thank you to everybody. It is always fascinating and heartwarming to see all of the different locations that are represented. In terms of what I'm doing here today, I will be just kind of getting out of the way for our wonderful ISTE Roundtable to talk about their work and their findings on technology in the classroom. More broadly, I'm the K-12 partnership lead at ThingLink. So I work with our partner schools and districts to figure out where ThingLink can fit in their tech stack, what usages make the most sense. And I get the absolute privilege of being able to view some of the amazing creations that you all and your students and your colleagues are making. So I am always extremely grateful for a chance to learn a little bit more. And as Louise mentioned, it'll be a slightly different perspective today since we have some authors who also are classroom teachers. So I'm fascinated to learn as much as you all are.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Troy. And we mentioned there, of course, there's been quite a period of change at the moment. I mean, since the pandemic, really, I think we saw technology being used really quickly. People had to change and change fast because the, kind of classrooms came to a halt, not in terms of learning, of course. But ThingLink has changed so much over the years. And I thought it was really helpful, just as we go into this webinar, which is all about emerging uses of technology. It's just to remember, and I know Karalee's probably looking at this and thinking, I remember when ThingLink first came out. So, of course, ThingLink started with the ability to add information as hotspots to images, and this was the brainchild of Ulla-Maria Koivula, who was conducting her PhD in the University of Helsinki at the time, and her whole vision was about how anything should be an interface for learning based on the theories of Vygotsky. And as technology changed, of course, ThingLink changed, and then the ability to add tags on a timeline. This is not me playing golf, but I wish it was. But the hotspots being positioned at the right point in the right time. And then, of course, 2016, 360, and some of you will remember the Google Street View camera app where you could use your phone to, take those 360 images as well. But unfortunately, Google got rid of that. But ThingLink stepped up with a solution so you can take your own panoramic images and turn them into 360. But that really opened up the ability to create virtual tours and virtual field trips and escape rooms and all those kinds of wonderful uses. And then, of course, 3D became easier to get hold of as well. Things like Sketchfab, where you could download 3D objects and upload them into ThingLink. And now where we're at is the ability to create augmented reality experiences and take an image of something like a physical object and add in those hotspots. I mean, this is all fantastic news for learning. And where are we now? Well, it's not just immersive learning for headsets. Of course, immersive learning can be used and designed by students on any device at all. But of course, there's higher end headsets, glasses coming out, and who knows what's coming next. But certainly we're seeing an explosion of these immersive spaces as well. And we're seeing ThingLink being used in immersive spaces for branching scenarios and micro-learning experiences. But I think that just about sets the scene for where ThingLink is today. And of course, it's grown in usage as well. There's about 10 million or so creators globally, which is why we love having webinars like this, because it's just the perfect way to start us all thinking about how we move forward in this era of AI. But Troy, over to you, because you're going to introduce our first guest to the webinar.
Yes. And so I would love to introduce who we're going to refer to as the book mom of the group, Stephanie Argy. She is an editor at ISTE and has been the co-creator of all of the works that we're going to speak about today. She has also been a wonderful support system in gathering this group of authors and making sure that we had a variety of different perspectives represented. So Stephanie, would love to welcome you to the stage, and then I can talk a little bit about what we're going to be covering today more broadly.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Troy and Louise. I'm very happy, and to everybody for being here as well. So I think I probably have the best job in the world because I get to work with incredibly passionate, dedicated, talented educators and help them share their ideas in the form of books. And the guests that we have with us tonight are three of the very, very best authors and educators that I've had the pleasure to work with. So I'm really excited to have a conversation. There's a lot of technology in the books, but it's really about ultimately learning and teaching and building community. And I can't wait to introduce you to these people.
Yes. And that is that last bit is exactly what we're aiming for today, is a very conversational approach. So if anyone in the audience has a question that branches off of something we're discussing, or just an unrelated question that is sparked by the discussion we're having, there's no need for things to be overly rigid. We want to make sure that we kind of keep things more to, education technology and immersive learning, but there really is nothing that's out of bounds here. And you'll see that we have, a few different folks here who will have their own individual stories. The reason that we felt like this was the right time to pull this group together was kind of the crossroads that you all are probably facing. At least I know those of us in the United States in the K-12 world are facing, where there is this abundance of options. And the pre-COVID era of some teachers being completely tech averse, I think is, out the window. And it's been a wonderful thing for, differentiation, interactivity, just being more student centric. But at the same time, there's now this massive abundance of different tools that, may look flashy, but then doesn't, work as intended, or you've got to fit things together very intentionally. And now, funding is a completely different ballgame than it was even, 6 months ago. And so with all of these different possibilities, these folks have been through it. They have not only vetted a number of different pieces of tech, but they've had the metacognitive exercise of being able to then create a book with Stephanie and figure out, what the vision is, like how everything can fit together. So I'm really excited again to take a step back here and to hear what these folks have to say. But it's really all about very intentional and productive use of technology in the classroom.
Wait, do we bring everybody on stage now, or did you want to share their slides? What would be the next step?
Yeah. Why don't we, Louise, if you don't mind putting the slides up here, I think we can bring folks on as their slides are shown. We'll do this one by one for a little bit of dramatic effect, starting with Karalee.
Karalee, okay, great. So you can read all about these wonderful authors on screen. So I'm going to just give you a little bit of extra insight information. So Karalee is, as you can see, she's the absolute expert on not just civics. She did this book, this great book on history and civics with her co-author, Laurel Aguilar-Kirchhoff. But what you can't necessarily tell from the cover of the book is that Karalee is also incredibly adept at building community in the classroom, building community among her students, but also helping students see themselves in history. When I think about Karalee, that's the thing that stands out the most, is this welcoming people into everybody's story. We talk about shoes a lot as well, Karalee and I. So that's my introduction to Karalee.
Yes.
And pens. We also talk about pens.
Yes, pens.
Pens and shoes. Yeah, two key
shoes.
topics for today. And we'll go ahead, since everyone will have their chance to talk in long form. We'll just do each introduction back to back here, and then we can get into it.
Yeah. So Michele is actually an incredibly diverse, multi-talented author. She has done many books for ISTE, and I've had the pleasure to work with her on 3 of those. One is a book which I especially love. It's called Creative SEL. It's actually an award-winning book, and it's a collection of projects from Michele and her co-author Mark Gura about creating projects that help kids connect to SEL capabilities within themselves. So there are a lot of projects that they created and have tested over many years in the classroom, but there are also projects that were contributed by a really wide and wonderful range of other educators. It's a beautiful book. And she also is a adept at doing these great Jumpstart guides. So she has one podcasting for students, which has been a super popular one, and a brand new one out about active learning. So that is just the ink is still wet on that one, and it is great. And Michele is just a delight to work with. And we haven't talked about shoes yet, but we will. And Cathy is the newest author on the list. Cathy's book hasn't actually come out yet. It's going to be coming out in early 2026. And it is the most challenging book, not because Cathy is not a wonderful writer, because she is, but because it's a combination of news literacy and AI in the year 2025. It was like working on Jello. It was so challenging, but Cathy is tireless in doing research. She is a library media specialist, so just her research is so wide-ranging and deep, and I think that this will be a really an important and valuable tool for so many educators. And she has 2 wonderful kittens who came along during the writing process, Henry and Hannah. So you may catch a glimpse of them in the background.
Hopefully a guest appearance here to come. But yeah, welcome, and thanks again to everybody. Let's go ahead and get into some of the topics and questions that we have teed up for today. So the first section here kind of just revolves around what got each of these authors to this point. You know, the process of not only choosing to write a book, but doing it, you know, with Stephanie's help and with ISTE's help.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with Michele, because Michele, you've done so many projects with ISTE. How did you make this transition from being an educator to being an author? And what was that process like for you?
Sure. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you to ThingLink and everyone here. It is such an honor to be here and to see so many incredible international educators part of this. It really is such a good feeling when we see all that energy together. In terms of, I'll say, like the first book, even though Stephanie and I have worked closely on the last 3 projects, my first book actually came out of an educator's Twitter chat like one evening. And this is like 10 years ago, when Twitter was like Twitter and a safe place for educators to really share amazing ideas. And we were just chatting one night and I said, this should be a book. And then I went forward from there. And that was Gamify Literacy, which brought in so many different writers and to share how they were gamifying and using gamification in their classroom. And then, projects just spilled from there. And, Stephanie is amazing. I feel like, I'll throw out an idea and everybody's like, that sounds good. And she really has helped to elevate my own writing and interest in writing alongside with being an educator. And it was really about sharing what I was doing in my classroom with others to inspire others and see, there is so much that is attainable for educators, despite all the negative noise we hear many days.
I'm going to go next chronologically. So, Karalee, how did you become an ISTE author?
I would have never dreamed that I would become an ISTE author. And again, I'm also thank you for ThingLink for having us, and also grateful for ISTE for putting us all together, and for our book mom, Steph, and Valerie, with one of the acquisition acquisition editor. She reached out to me, and it's because kind of during the pandemic, I had done things, and some things were virtual because of the pandemic. And so she saw some of my works and asked, would you write a book? And at that point in life, I said yes. In a previous life, I might have said no. And so it began a wonderful and challenging process. And I said, okay, well, I want my kids to do hard things. So let me be willing to model what I asked of my kids. And so I'm like, okay, I don't have to say no. I can ask. So we scheduled a meeting, and she was just so kind. And she says, you can have contributors, you can have a co-author. And that spoke my language, because I love to externally process. And so that's when I reached out to my co-author, Laurel Aguilar-Kirchhoff. And we really didn't know each other that well, but we had started getting to know each other during the pandemic. And so I'm like, oh, do you write? Do you want to write a book? And we laugh now because she said yes right away. I didn't know what I was asking, and she didn't know what she was saying yes to. But we got together with Steph and we started writing. And I still remember that pain of the first time we got together in person during the pandemic, and scheduling that and writing, and this, we don't know, what are we doing? And then okay, press the send button. We're sending it off to Steph. And then Steph works her magic. And an editor isn't just an editor. Is our book mom. She's like a book therapist, counselor. She's an encourager. She's a coach. She's all those things. And when she started working her magic, and we're like, oh wait, we can work. And then that just, that just motivated us, and that encouraged us, and it gave us the energy to continue on. And it was just a really great process. In the beginning, we started talking, we had to come up with what we're going to write about. And we're like, okay, let's just bring history to life. But then it started morphing and changing. Like, right about talking about citizenship. And then, well, let's talk to Emma Humphreys. And, we knew enough people that we could do this, and we could iterate, and we can ideate. And so, what you have is a book that we're really proud of, and so grateful to Steph and ISTE for getting us there.
Thank you. And it was Karalee and her co-author who coined the term book mom as well. So all of these are book siblings, and I am their connecting point. Cathy, you are the newest author on the list.
Yes.
Tell me your process.
Yeah, well, I loved what you shared, Stephanie, about it being like walking on jello, because this topic, I'd say it began with a spark, this sense that there's this disconnect between what students are dealing with in their digital lives and the reality of what they're being taught in the classroom. There's just such a gap there, and being flooded with information, misinformation, disinformation, and I saw this need to help them sort it all out. I'm a first-time newbie author, but formerly in my first career was a journalist. So I'm just so passionate about this topic, and it's been such a delight to work with Stephanie on this. And I'd say it's been part discovery, part dialogue, and a very interesting, especially as a first-time author, process. Just fascinating. And with everything changing so quickly in the worlds of AI and social media, just keeping up with it has been quite a challenge, and also very exciting, because I really truly feel like this is the time for this book.
I agree. Troy, I see you speaking, but you are muted.
Interesting. Am I still?
Nope, now we can hear you.
Perfect. For some reason that was not showing up on my device, but I thought Cathy raised a really interesting point that kind of feeds into an area that I think a lot of folks are curious about: the transition from digital research and having a number of digital tools available to actually putting that in practice in the classroom and making sure that it really lands with students, that they are able to sync some of what they're seeing in their personal lives with the tools that they have in the classroom. So would love to hear a little bit more from folks about some of those things. Starting with Michele, who I know had a very specific lesson that she just created using ThingLink.
Yes. I mean, as teachers, it's like walking into like the food store, and there's so many options that we need to we pick and choose and evaluate and think about like what are the key ingredients. It's not so much about like the technology, but it's what are we doing to really incorporate critical thinking in our classroom, and then how is technology going to be used to elevate that and really support the diverse students in our classrooms. I love like all new shiny things, but then again, as an educator, if I'm using it in my classroom, I need to play with it, try it out, pilot it, and really try to think about how it's going to work and how it's really going to support my learners and my objectives for the lesson. So I was playing around a lot. It's funny because I wrote about ThingLink in my first edition of personalized reading and talked about it as a great tool to, as I'm a middle school English teacher, so to build vocabulary, to provide background information, that's all great to utilize. And since, we were talking about when we had that huge pivot in education with the pandemic, and now we're pivoting again with AI, I went back into ThingLink to think about how can I use it today in my classroom and really elevate my students' learning. What I started doing during the pandemic was putting together digital reading and writing guides, almost like a choose your own adventure path or map for my students with my units. And that's what I did with with ThingLink in front loading my murder mystery unit to inspire my students for their own creative writing purposes.
That sounds awesome. I love murder mysteries, and I know Cathy does as well. So we'll find out. We're gonna look at that lesson. This is the next question is for Karalee. Because Karalee is one of the bravest people I know because she teaches 8th graders, and she thinks watching her in the classroom is like an amazing experience because she keeps the engagement so high. So, my question for you, Cathy, is in your classroom or any that you've observed, what's one powerful example of technology transforming student engagement or learning outcomes? How do you use technology to keep your students involved?
So I've been a history teacher for a long time. And I used to tell the parents I've been teaching since 1990, and I started when I was 10, and then the number got too big, so I said I started teaching when I was 0. But I've taken history vacations my whole life, and PD and other summer things, and so I'd take pictures and say, here's our On the Road with Mrs. Nakatsuka slideshow, and they'd get to see these places. But when I started getting introduced to ThingLink, and virtual reality and everything, it really upped the game, because always talk about being in the room where it happened. And so we're on the West Coast, we're far away from all these other sites, but showing them Ellis Island in 360, me going to a place and being able to share it with them in 360, and they can go explore, going to Hamilton the musical, everyone's into Hamilton, so going to Hamilton's house, the Grange, and then being able to bring them in virtually is so powerful. And then the students learning from that and experiencing these spaces, and then they get to tell their stories, and so that's pretty exciting too. So that's my Hamilton Grange, and I'm a fan of Joan Freeman, who's the closest you'll ever be to a Yale historian to meeting Hamilton. And so I visited his home. I looked online if I could find a 360, and there wasn't, and so I took 360 myself, because I have a 360 camera. I walk around with a tripod on vacation, and I get to show these things and tell these stories that I heard from the docents with the students. And that's pretty exciting to be able to share that with them. And then to see them take that stuff and then them to apply it and then them to tell their stories. And they're so creative and they think of things to do that we don't even think about doing, is really exciting to see when they take that work. And I started working with ThingLink when it was a little bit more challenging to use. And a great moment was when I saw students talking to each other, helping them to problem solve and figure it out on themselves without me. When I'm like, they don't even need me, that's an awesome moment. So seeing them willing to struggle, seeing their agency, seeing their creativity, that's just a wonderful thing to see. And thank you to ThingLink for getting us there.
I'd like to talk a little bit about digital citizenship. Cathy is, in addition to being an educator and an author, is also on the ISTE ASCD board and has done a lot of work on the ISTE standards and on the new transformational learning principles. Transformational learning principles, which would be a lot easier to pronounce. I wish they would. But Cathy, the ISTE standards encourage educators to empower student voice. So actually, how do you see technology amplifying student agency and learning?
Yeah, I think it's basically all about amplifying student voice and creativity. And so whether we're talking about podcasting or visualizing data or using AI tools to refine their writing, students are learning to speak back to the systems that shape their worldview. And right now that's so incredibly important. And this, of course, aligns beautifully with ISTE's emphasis on voice and choice. Students should not only learn from the technology, but also use it to inform, persuade, and inspire change.
And we've talked a little bit too, in your book, you talk as well about students being not just consumers of news, consumers of journalism, but also creators of it. Can you share a few examples about what that might look like, especially using technology?
Yeah, so one of my favorite projects that I feel like totally amplified their voices in a very powerful way was using a tool called Ludenso Create. And the project was all about creating an eco-friendly home prototype. So using this AR video platform, which was all modeling in 3D, they were able to design their own eco-friendly homes. And through this particular Ludenso Create, they also had the opportunity to enter a global competition, and one of my students won an iPad for her global work. So, and the fact that she was able to publish that globally, that is huge. So any opportunity I think that we can give to students to not only create, but then share their voice and their creativity with the world, that's what it's all about.
Great. And Karalee, in your book, you and your co-author Laurel came up with just a little motto of encouragement, which was try one thing, try one new thing. Can you talk a little bit about that? And because teachers often feel overwhelmed by new tools. So based on what you've done, what's one low barrier, high impact way that teachers can start using technology more effectively tomorrow? How can they try one new thing?
Yeah, I enjoyed writing my story in our book about that. So when I'm not a digital native, I've been around a long time. I remember when we first got computers and we said we can email each other. That's how much we knew. But so I'm like, okay, I'm overwhelmed. There's all these things, but I can just try one thing. And so the one thing I tried was ThingLink, and the ThingLink Summer Challenge was around that time. And so little did I know that I tried, a very challenging tool to use. ThingLink has just, thank you to ThingLink, just evolved so much. It's really user friendly and much easier to use than in the beginning. And so because I did this teacher challenge, because they laid out this plan and I'm good at following directions, I followed it and I learned how to use ThingLink. And so then I was excited to use that to share with my students. And so we model trying, then we can model for our students and also especially our co-teachers. Oftentimes teachers are tech hesitant, but as I tell my students over and over again, how do we get better at something? We try, right? We practice. And so I have to practice learning how to use the tech. And so encouraging the kids, hey, you can try. And also encouraging our coworkers, just try one new thing. You don't need to do everything, but if you just try one new thing and it works out, then you continue on. I like sketchnoting. I don't think I'm really great at sketchnoting, but I'm like, okay, I got to learn how to draw a muscle. And I model for the kids and I don't do a really good job, but they see it and they try and they go, whoa, yours is way better than mine. And so when we model imperfection, when we model practice and trying, it's really great for our students because we want them to be able to be resilient and we want them to persevere and we want them to have the agency.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I think another balance that is still being struck day by day in the post-COVID learning era is the huge amount of potential for differentiation and inclusion that technology provides. Even something as simple on ThingLink, we see all the time, like being able to add uploaded audio to a tag so that a student is not boxed in by having to, be a strong reader of text or, of visuals. And so there are these greater opportunities for equity and inclusion. But with that comes greater potential for misuse or just flat out confusion and tech burnout. And so excited to hear from the group here on a little bit of their guidance on, kind of finding the midpoint between those two things.
Okay.
I think Karalee really said it like the best about like not being afraid to like fail or show your weaknesses to your students and your colleagues and really also taking the opportunity to like share and showcase and like help other teachers as you're learning and exploring. Right now I'm playing around with like 2 AI tools, but like I'm working with a few other teachers and we're like experimenting together. And that's like a great little, like to have a little cohort of like educators or friends that you could bounce ideas off of. That's really helpful and beneficial. But I love the try something new every week or month, whatever is your timeline, and like figure out and look at different models that really help us or give you ideas is great as well.
We've had a lovely question that's come in the chat from Marit, and Marit is in Finland. In an era of immersive EdTech, how do we ensure that virtual experiences cultivate critical thinking rather than just stimulate it? Who would like to have a go at answering this question? I can see Cathy nodding.
I think that's what it's all about, is making sure that it's about the questioning, making sure that we're framing whatever it is we're doing with our students, whatever project, so that we start with the question, not the tech. We start with the question and have them use the tech as a tool. But also this connects with what we were just talking about. having peers admitting that we are not, as the teachers, the experts, we don't have the answers to global challenges, but our students can help us to solve these problems, and involving students, whether it's even modeling the text. So I always start off by saying, we're going to try a new tool today. I'm not an expert at it, and I want you guys to help each other out. And so having students step up to the plate and take on that role of teaching other students, I think that's really important as well.
Thanks, Cathy. Back over to you, Stephanie, and I think you've got a next question lined up.
I do actually. Everybody wants to refine their techniques, refine their toolkits, but at the same time, teachers are working in the real world with a lot of extraneous demands. So many schools struggle with balancing innovation and accountability. So how can educators experiment with new tech while still meeting standards and testing requirements? And I'm going to go. Yeah, it looks like Michele was.
Well, I mean, the first thing I'll say is that, like baseline, we're teaching humans and human beings, and I think that's really the most important thing. Yes, we have incredible elements of technology around us. We have the standards, we have, there's all different things that are that teachers are juggling. But first and foremost, it's about connecting with our students and building relationships and showing them why learning in school still matters, and how, we mentioned already, creativity and questioning, even allowing your students to ask their own questions. I mean, these are all different key things to think about. We are every day touching upon the standards and approaching standards and meeting standards in terms of testing requirements. Yes, it's part of our role as educators, but we need to put our students first and foremost before we talk about the other things.
Interesting. Does anyone else have a thought? Have you ever had pushback on your own work versus testing or anything? How do you handle that?
Well, I think the technology is a way to fulfill our standards and to make our coursework engaging. It's not technology just for technology's sake. And so I remember a teacher saying, Joe Schmidt saying, stay in the sandbox. So the sandbox is the standards that the state sets forth for you. So you're gonna follow that. You're gonna follow your framework. You're gonna follow your standards. But technology is a way that you can share those standards with the students in an engaging way.
Okay. And this being the year 2025, the question of AI will inevitably raise its head. So, Cathy, I'm going to start with you on this one because you've got AI in the title of your book. From your perspective, what role should AI play in the classroom? And how do we balance innovation with concerns like ethics, equity, and teacher readiness?
I think it's really important that we're trying to balance technological fluency with civic imagination. So again, the AI is just a tool. It's not a substitute for human connection. And emphasizing that there are human skills that AI will never replicate, and that's creativity, empathy, and moral reasoning. So stressing that.
Yeah. Michele, since you've worked a lot in the social emotional learning area, did you have a contribution on that as well?
Sure. I mean, AI is evolving in leaps and bounds, and we can resist it, we can engage with it, or we can, engage with it. And I think we need to do all three. As a middle school English teacher, I say to my parents and my students, I want you to be able to think before having the machine think for you. I think that reading and writing and as a literacy teacher, those are still core skills that we want students to be able to utilize. I agree with Cathy. Like, you know, we know that AI doesn't feel, it doesn't have the emotions that are connected with reading and writing for us. And I think it's about like supporting our students so that they can see the strengths and the weaknesses and understand that their voice is what really matters as we move forward.
Thank you. And then for all three of you, starting with Karalee, looking ahead, what do you believe is the next frontier in education technology, and how should teachers prepare for it?
It's a wild frontier. I mean, we have AI, and I think you visit different schools and you have, like, I was at an in-service one time and they says, well, are we going to put up the AI filters? But for whatever technology and everything that comes up there, we're going to still grapple with how to use AI. But rather than shut it off, we need to help our students learn how to be critical thinkers, digital citizens, empathetic humans, responsible, engaged, informed citizens, so that as they engage with the AI, that they learn how to use the technology respectfully, responsibly, to make the world a better place, in any way that they engage with it. So I think it's helping them, learning to be critical thinkers, learning to be part of, like, I'm very big into community, being part of a community and seeing what's their part that they can contribute to it, rather than like, hey, AI, how can I get away with this or that or anything? So having these and reflecting with the students and having these conversations for whatever is ahead with AI and everything that's before us, nothing will replace raising up empathetic, critical thinkers who see themselves as part of this community and this larger picture and their different countries and the world as a world citizen.
Thank you, Karalee. Michele.
I think Karalee said it so perfectly, you know, really giving our students the tools to, I'll say, control the tech and not the other way around. Because, you know, we keep talking about like creativity, community, you know, communication, like those critical thinking. These 4 C's are what's driving our digital and our global world.
Thank you. And Cathy.
Yeah, I would just echo everything that's already been said. It's basically about moving from thinking of it as content delivery, you know, what can ChatGPT spit out, to context creation. So again, helping our students interpret and ethically engage with what is being produced by the machine.
Thank you.
Here. And one last question that I have, at least, and certainly if folks in the audience have questions of their own, we'll have a few minutes for that following this one. But to make things bite-sized, for each of the 3 of you, what is one tip, trick, something that teachers can implement immediately, agnostic of what technology they use, that can make their use of technology in the classroom more effective?
When you're teaching kids tech, don't give them the multi-step month-long project right away. So take a low bar and a very engaging and fun personal project for the kids. So for my kids, when I'm teaching them ThingLink, I have them do a fun little activity where share an image. So your background image is going to be an image that reflects you. It doesn't have to be your picture. You know, middle schoolers can be shy, but anything. It could be the band you like, the football player you like. And then you're going to put 4 tags. And so you can name the tags. So it's just easy. It's something you like. Your favorite word. If you had a food truck named after you, you know, if you had a food truck, what would that be? What's your favorite song? You know, what's your walk-up song or what's your theme song? You know, and something else. And so it's a really easy, it's fun. The kids have so much fun, and that introduces them to ThingLink and the different bells and whistles, and they, you know, they can go wild. They can add 360s if they want or whatever. And so it's a really, really low bar. It's really fun. We have gallery walks and they have fun seeing what everyone else did. And then they go from there. So I've realized through the years, you know, you don't start with a very complicated project and we're doing ThingLink, because then you forget the content, but you make it really easy content. So it's just about them learning how to use the tool.
Yeah.
Cathy?
Yeah, I would just echo the same thing. And again, just modeling for your students curiosity and honoring their growth and being the first to admit when you make a mistake using a tool. Not that there are really any mistakes, but it's all just learning, right?
And Michele.
The process.
I would say, like, have your kids ask the questions, have your students ask the questions, because when they ask the questions, they own the learning. So, you know, I'm all about, with Karalee in middle school, it's controlled choices. So, you know, keeping the choices within like some controlled boundaries is also helpful.
Great, thank you.
And we have a question in the chat, which I wanted to put up on the screen to make sure we cover. So thinking critically about your EdTech toolkit. And I know that many of us have a tech stack. I love my Canva and I use Canva and ThingLink, I think, are my two things I use every day. Notebook LM is my third probably. But thinking about your EdTech toolkit, which tools have sparked unexpected learning outcomes, positive or negative, and what does that reveal about immersive technology in education? I've got an example that I can think of, but who would like to go first? Who's got an example that resonates with that?
Well, I have a cue ball, which is a throwable microphone. Not immersive, but I guess we're immersed in our classroom. But oftentimes, like, our classrooms are so big, you can't you can't really hear the kid in the corner, but you kind of pretend and you nod your head. But so I have this microphone, and so the kids, it's fun because they can throw it, it can fall on the floor, but it just opens up the classroom when you can actually hear each other talk. And then especially it's just these great aha moments when a student who doesn't normally talk, who's kind of shy and they're kind of quiet, and they speak into that cue ball and they feel comfortable. And so that's it's a really easy technology, but just to be able to hear our students' voice for the whole classroom is amazing.
Definitely. That was going to be one of my answers as well, but in a digital context. And I created a course for a school where the students have been out of education for quite some time, and their interest was becoming a barista. So we created this course on how to become a barista. And one of the scenes, which is in the cafe, we couldn't get the young person to record their experience of what it was like to work in a cafe. So we actually had an AI generated kind of narration to it, and it didn't really land well. And then the young person that was involved recorded their own voice and put that in there, and it just lifted the whole experience. So the learning outcome for that was about authenticity and the power of student voice and the value of that young person's voice. And he came away with a feeling that he knew the value and his worth and how that was elevated, and that can't be substituted with AI generated content. So that was my outcome, but definitely authenticity and young people being able to resonate with that. That was my example. What about anybody else? I can see Michele smiling.
I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. I feel like I have like a top 4 right now, like what I'm like playing around to really elevate the learning and the outcomes in my classroom. My students just finished a digital story project. We did New York Times has this a series called Anatomy of a Scene, where like a director talks over a particular scene, and my students are reading graphic novels, so they have to like read closely a scene in the graphic novel, and they do like a voiceover, and they have images of the pictures. And so, like, you know, something like Screencastify or WeVideo is really great for that. But then I have like students who are English is not their first language, or they have a speech impediment. So then we can bring in something like Google's Vids or a Notebook LM, and students can upload their script, and you could have the AI voice read it for them, which again has them, you're not like necessarily doing an alternative assessment for them. They're part of the learning and happy to share because it's still their words, even though it might be an AI voice. So those are, I mean, I'll say the Vids and the Google's Vids and Google's Notebook LM, that just like since September has brought in so much accessibility for my students in multiple ways.
Definitely. I shall remove that question. And are there any questions left on your script? I know, Troy, you've got the questions there. Was there anything else?
I think we covered all of the key points. Open invitation for any parting thoughts, but short of that, I think we are good to go.
I got a question I'd love to ask Cathy, because Cathy has got a Substack, which is linked. And there was a talk on LinkedIn, which I mentioned to you just before the webinar. And that was a concern about the content that can be created with something like Sora AI. And the post that I saw on LinkedIn was saying, you know, this is awful, the tech companies should have banned it. But then I always try and look at things, you know, from both sides. And I thought, well, this technology has been out there for a long time, and people could, with the right skills, have created deepfakes. So deepfakes aren't a new phenomenon. They have been around. It's just that the ability to create these has become democratized, and people can create these more readily. So I'd love to hear from Cathy what your take on that was, because I was kind of like tossing around with it in my head.
Well, you know, personally, I think all tech tools can be used for good or bad. And so that's what we should be really, that's the message I feel is important to give students. And I have them use the tools. So I like a lot of times we'll have them actually see what are the bad actors out there using. I want my students to know what they're using and to actually experience how easy it is, so that they understand how easy it is to be manipulated unless they have that without that conscious awareness. And hopefully through what we're teaching them in the classroom, to ask to not take for granted that what they are seeing and viewing is real. That, you know, that's the real, like the key, I think, right, with any of this technology, because it's just, whether it's that or another tool, like we can't stop it, as some of the other panelists have said. Like, it's here, you know, it's here, it's evolving, but the critical thinking, I mean, that's what we're all about as educators. So if we can give them the tools so that they are questioning, you know, everything that they're seeing and viewing, then we've done our job, I feel, as teachers. I hope that answers the question.
No, that's thank you for answering that. Back over to you, Troy.
Yes, I think that just about wraps up the roundtable discussion portion of today. So if there are any last thoughts that kind of spill over here from the comments, we'll make sure to address those. But we'll go ahead and round things out here with a couple of last slides and send everyone on their way.
Thanks, Troy. So thank you, everyone that's joined us. I've just loved listening to everyone and their questions and their thoughts. And it's made me think, for sure. But we'd love you to connect with us. And when you get the slides, these are links. So we have our Facebook education community. We also have our ThingLink Certified Trainers Program. Karalee, you are part of that. And I would love Cathy and Michele to be in that community too. Lovely comments coming through from Merritt. Thank you, so inspiring. Thank you, Merritt. We have our webinars on YouTube. Please join our YouTube channel. And on LinkedIn, we have our newly renamed XR Experts community, because last week, we launched our very own course, which is Certified ThingLink XR Expert, which is linked here. This course is completely free, and you receive a certificate at the end, but it covers how to create immersive XR learning experiences. What is XR? It's an umbrella term, but what does it cover? So we talk you and work with you through this journey of understanding what immersive learning is all about, how to create connected micro-learning experiences. And that might be an answer for Merritt about immersive experiences. What's a positive outcome? I think a positive outcome is when people can link them together and then use them for a scenario where you ask a question and students can try out their theories and see what their responses might have led to. So it's a really safe way to do that. There's 2 modules. It's completely self-paced, and as I said, there's a certificate with it. So we would love you to have a go with that and see how you get on. We've had some lovely positive feedback already. People have enjoyed it, so please do have a look at that. All that's left to say from us, really, Troy, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, they can do, can't they? And you'd be happy to help them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even if that's just to exchange ideas, I am always trying to stay on top of all the latest. And even today, quite a few new things to dig into that I noted down. Just one more humongous thank you to all of you who attended, and an even bigger thank you to our lovely panelists for today. But hopefully I can continue the conversation with some of you in a smaller forum, and I welcome those opportunities.
Thanks, Troy. And any parting words from our wonderful panel? Thank you so much for being part of this today. So, Stephanie, any parting words?
Just want to say thank you to all of the attendees and to ThingLink and to Cathy and Michele and Karalee, who are the best.
I want to say thank you to Karalee as well, and I've been following her and her frogs for quite some years now, so it's really great to have this opportunity to hear from you as well. And to Michele, any parting words?
Oh, thank you to everybody, the participants, the panelists, to ThingLink, to Stephanie. I mean, I'm always inspired and learning something every day, so hopefully for everyone as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Cathy, last but not least.
Yes, just the same thank you to everyone. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Truly, it's just not every day that we get to share in this way together as educators and yes, with other industry professionals. So I'm very thankful to ThingLink as well.
And lots of people saying thank you. There's been a lot of love in the chat for everybody here today. So if you're watching on the catch up, we hope that you've enjoyed this. If you are starting your day, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. If you're off for the evening, have a very restful evening. And thank you to you all. So we do have other webinars coming up. I know there's going to be one which is about rewilding and 360 videos of wildlife. So do look out for that. If you want to watch any of our webinars from the past, then you can go to thinglink.com onto the blog /webinars. And if you just sign up, you'll get all of the links to the replay, all the slides, all of the resources that we share. So a big thank you from me. Take care, everybody. And thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.